Daniel Sports Central, big over our 2022 college football predictions on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, team that barely missed out on making the college football playoff last season. They were 12-2 overall. It was an outstanding season for this team, but how they've been in 2022, that's what we go over here today. We'll be analyzing this team and predicting their schedule game by game here today, starting out with your team trends. Oklahoma State, once again, 12-2 last season. They were 6-1 in their first 7 games and 6-1 in their last 7. And once again, 12-2 for this team. It was a great season for this team. They were in the Big 12 championship, and of course, they were literally inches away from winning that Big 12 championship game. They would have won that game against Baylor, as they were super close to doing so. This team would have been in the college football playoff last season, so obviously it's tough to look back at that. I can imagine if you're an Oklahoma State fan, but this team definitely, I think, shows some tremendous potential to make a run at a Big 12 title and even a college football playoff appearance this upcoming season. Some notable games from last year. This team beat Kansas State 31-10, beat Baylor in the regular season 24-14, beat Texas 32-24, and also beat Oklahoma in what was a huge matchup, just a huge win there, 37-33. So, this team got several quality wins last season, beating multiple teams in the top 25. Oklahoma was ranked number 10 when they played them. And of course, Baylor turned out to be, I'd say, the best team outside of the college football playoff this past season. Texas was, they were poor, but they were ranked when OSU played them, and of course, K-State wasn't terrible either. Lost to Baylor, of course, in the Big 12 title game, 16-21, but they beat Notre Dame to finish out the season, 37-35 in their bowl game. So, on the bright side, this team had a good win, an excellent win to finish out the season against Notre Dame, who was ranked number 5 when the Cowboys played them. Ross preview going into next season. This team does return several key players. Spencer Sanders is coming back. Last season, he had a good season in 2021. 2,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a 62% completion rate. Oklahoma State almost made it to the college football playoff with him. So, if he can improve going into next season, if he can improve that touchdown interception ratio especially, that would be huge going into next season. He also rushed for over 650 yards and 6 touchdowns, so he is a dual threat quarterback. So, his passing game his passing stats were okay, but, at least he rushed for over 600 yards. That certainly is crucial there. The running back situation, Jaylen Warren is gone, top running back from last season, 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns on the 2021 season. Dominic Richardson's coming back, the second running back on this team, 400 yards last season, 4 touchdowns. So this team in the rushing core was excellent last season. You do lose Warren, but Richardson is coming back, so expect him to be a key impact player in the backfield. As for the receiving core, Tay Martin is gone, your top receiver from last season. He put up over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. Brennan Presley's coming back, though. He put up just over 600 offensive yards and 6 touchdowns. You also return your third and fourth wideouts. Blaine Green and Rashad Owens are both coming back for next season. Blaine Green put up over 300 yards and a touchdown. Rashad Owens put up over 250. So, receiving core overall, I would say looks really good. There's some good depth in that receiving core. Tay Martin, of course, leaving this team is going to be tough. Same thing with the top running back, Jaylen Warren, obviously for obvious reasons. But Oklahoma State, this team has got some good depth, and I like this team and how they're looking going into next season. You lose 2 offensive linemen, 1 defensive lineman, 2 linebackers, and then 3 in the secondary. So defensively, you lose 6 of your starters. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there. But once again, the depth on this team is pretty good going to next season. I do think this team, they potentially could be a dark horse college football playoff contender in 2022. They're losing some key players, obviously, but this team is, once again, they got some good returning production and some good depth as well. And I feel like this team is, a very real contender for the Big 12 title. Oklahoma next season, I don't expect them to be quite as good. They've got, several big-time changes over there in Norman. But, of course, you got Baylor. They should be good this upcoming season. Texas should be a contender as well. There's also a couple other dark horse contenders. K-State could be decent as well. But I feel like Oklahoma State is probably my favorite to win the Big 12 going into next season. I feel like this team is the most complete team that I'm seeing in the Big 12. I'm the most confident picking Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 title right now. But, certainly this team, keep an eye on them because they got the talent to be a big-time contender. Transfer portal and recruiting, this team loses several players to the transfer portal. They only bring in, Jason Brooks, who I would say is probably the only notable player coming in from the transfer portal, but you also lose Bernard, defensive back, defensive lineman Jernigan, defensive back McAllister, offensive tackle Anthony Illingworth, a quarterback, backup quarterback. He's off to Nevada. Desmond Jackson, running backs, off to Sam Houston State, and then Farrar, linebackers, off to SMU. So you're losing several key players to transfer portal. Recruiting-wise, it's not terrible. 36th in the nation, 3rd in the Big 12. You got 6 4-stars and 14 3-stars coming in. So I mean, you do add some depth with the recruiting there. You're losing a few players to the transfer portal, but once again, the depth is good enough on this team, and you bring in some good recruits. I feel like this team is in pretty good shape going into next season. But that said, let's look at your schedule now going into next season. You start off the season against Central Michigan on September 1st. I believe that's on a Thursday night. Then you got Arizona State on the 10th. You got UAPB coming to town. Then you got Baylor as your first conference game on the road. You got Texas Tech at home, TCU on the road, Texas at home, and then K-State on the road. So, I mean, the thing is about this team, too, is your bye week comes on September 24th. So you've got a week 4 bye, which certainly is not ideal. You'd rather have that in the middle of the season or even maybe towards the later parts of the season for sure. But, I mean, this team has got a very early bye. So, I mean, that's something to keep an eye on. It really shouldn't be too significant, but, I mean, with injuries and stuff, that could have an impact. But yeah, so you play all 5. You play 5 games in October. Then you got in November, you got Kansas on the road, Iowa State at home, Oklahoma on the road, and then West Virginia at home to finish out the season. So, of course, Oklahoma is going to be good. We got them on the road. That's always a tough place to play. Texas should be good. Baylor should be good. Even K-State could be a decent team. I do think they're kind of flying under the radar. So, I mean, there's several very interesting games on the schedule. But looking at your September here, Central Michigan, I think this team goes 3-0 in September. Central Michigan, easy win. Arizona State's a home game. Should be an interesting one there. All favor Oklahoma State, but Arizona State could be decent next season. I mean, I'm not expecting too many big things out of them, but I do think the Sun Devils could put up a fight there. And then you get UAPB. That's going to be an easy win there. So you start out the season 3-0. You got Baylor on the road after your bye on October 1st. I will favor Oklahoma State there against Baylor. I do think, I mean, Baylor, of course, is they're going to be a good team next season, but I do think the Cowboys do go in there and get the win. I'm sure they're going to be ready to go, especially after how the Big 12 title game ended after last season. Texas Tech, easy win with it being at home. TCU on the road, all favor Oklahoma State there, but TCU could put up a fight. Texas, very interesting matchup. I mean, Texas is a team that is, I mean, they got high expectations going into next season. They're expected to be a potential playoff contender. And I understand why, I mean, Quinn Ewers coming in, but I mean, Texas, I just feel like that team is a bit overrated right now. I don't see them. I mean, they're expected to be a 10-11 win team next season when they only got like 5 wins last season. So, I mean, I think Texas will be good. They'll get to a bowl game for sure, but I don't think they'll be quite as good as what people are thinking. So, I'm going to pick Oklahoma State to get the win there, but it certainly will be a close matchup. Kansas State on the road. Now, that's a game where I do think OSU slips up there. I think K-State next season, I mean, they'll be an 8 or 9 win team, I can imagine. I mean, K-State should be in the top 4, top 5 in the Big 12, I would say. I'm going to pick K-State there. It's a road game, and obviously, I mean, this Oklahoma State team coming off of a tough stretch against TCU and Texas. I'm going to pick K-State to win that game there, but certainly a very close matchup. And looking at November, Kansas on the road, easy win, so you'll bounce back there. You got Iowa State at home. I don't expect too many insane things out of the Cyclones, so I'll favor Oklahoma State there. Oklahoma on the road, it's a winnable game, and both losses that I'm predicting for Oklahoma State's schedule, K-State and Oklahoma, are very winnable games for Oklahoma State as well. So, I mean, this team could easily be between 10 and 12 wins next season, but I'm gonna favor OU there. I feel like Oklahoma being at home, and especially, I mean, it could be a night game as well. I'll favor the Sooners there. I do think the Sooners will progress over the course of the season. Maybe a rough start for Oklahoma with all the changes and everything, but I feel like Oklahoma's going to improve as the season goes on, and that'll be a challenging game when it comes down to it on November 19th. So I'll favor the Sooners there. And then West Virginia to finish out the season, I'll favor Oklahoma State there in a close one. So 10-2 is my projected record for this team going to next season. I feel like this team should definitely be top 2. Definitely I would expect them to be in the Big 12 championship and maybe even in the conversation for the college football playoff. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on this team, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.